All right, thanks everybody for making it out. I'm Wade Ellwanger, General Manager at the Lower Niobrara NRD in Butte. We'll hurry up and get on with this. This is Shane Lechtenberg. Shane just happens to be our board chairman. Shane's been doing some innovative stuff out here on his ground, since 2013. Okay, so I'll give it to Shane.
Hello everybody, thanks for coming today. I guess I'll give a little background, and then I've got a few other people on our team here we'll introduce. I think we put our first system in 2013. It's west, there's a half section west of here, a half a mile. You guys would have drove by it where the bales are at. There was some forage wheat on that we're haying. And then the south end of that is corn. That was our original drip system. That's about 17-inch deep tape, and it's 60 inches wide. There's a lot of things we've learned since then. I think I'll probably let Tim here after a bit explain some of the evolution of drip tape. But and since that time, we've added 3 other systems north of the building site up here. There's 160 acres. It's 40-inch tape. And then this piece here is chopped up, also 40-inch tape. And then we have another piece north of the gravel road out there that's got some forage that we plan to graze, and that's 40-inch tape as well. What you're looking at here is not our proudest moment. We had soybeans on this last year and planted wheat in to try to get something growing, and it was so dry and the wind blew and made a complete mess of this particular field. So I wouldn't judge anything by looking at this. You can just learn from it. But I'm going to introduce, this is my youngest daughter, Allie, and my oldest daughter, Lainey, and then my wife and middle daughter are gone today, but they're pretty involved in all this. And yeah, we're just trying to get a little creative. Our water supply out here is, we're about 400 gallon a minute on 160 acres. And actually, this system and the north system are 160, they would be, there's about 400 acres, I think, altogether on 800 gallon a minute. So we're pretty limited on water. We're really trying to switch gears and focus on crop rotation, with some of the small grains and grazing and that sort of thing. We have a base cow herd that we basically trying to raise cow feed for the most part. So I think I'll let Tim or Wyatt, the NutraDrip, if you want to introduce your team. Jeff Klaus, I guess, is over here, our agronomist too, and Charles is an internship with NutraDrip. But I'm going to let them kind of elaborate more on the details, and then when we get done, if you guys have questions, you can come back at any of us and ask. And you're welcome to walk through the container. The filter system's in there. We've been, it seems like every year there's something to change, and we've been running diesel generators to generate power up until this spring. We finally got 3-phase in here, and that's been a game changer for sure as far as just labor efficiency. And VFDs, we put those on our wells too, to where we're conserving how much water we roll out of these wells, as well as the pressure efficiencies on the zones has been we've just seen a huge impact on that already this spring, and that's all brand new add-on this year as well. So I'm going to let Wyatt talk. You can go with what you know, and then we'll answer questions when everybody's done.
Yeah, can everybody hear all right?
Yeah, you got me, guys? All right. Yeah, I'm Wyatt Byer with NutraDrip Irrigation. I'm based out of northwest Iowa, just 40 miles straight east of Sioux Falls, basically. Been doing a lot of service work with NutraDrip for 7-8 years now. Started getting a little bit into sales, so if I'm a little bumpy public speaking, forgive me, because I haven't done much of this. So, but just kind of at a high level overview of Shane's farm specifically, I would say a lot of what we've done here at Shane's is really showcases just the versatility I think that drip can provide, just in terms of, you know, layout of all of his fields, different crop types, and yeah, I think it's definitely been a game changer for him and a lot of guys. So a lot of what we do at NutraDrip is focus on the service side of things. So we're not just going to install and leave farmers to fend for themselves. We're out in the field all the time, fixing leaks and helping guys. And Shane utilizes a lot of the services we provide in terms of tying your drip system in with moisture probes, agronomy work. That's where kind of Tim Wolf here comes into play. He's our agronomy guy. So yeah, I'm trying to think what else I can share. Yeah, Tim, you might want to take over here. Yeah, so that's also another piece of kind of the versatility of what we do. So all this ground that Shane's got drip on, how many acres is it total?
Just under 800.
Yeah, so just under 800 acres, we've got all that tied into one controller, so he can pull it up on his phone, computer, and look at everything that's going on. We've got pressure transducers out in the field. You can look at your pressure on different zones, your flow on each piece of ground. Yeah, I think it really just showcases kind of what NutraDrip can do for even large-scale operations. So go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Wyatt, and thank you, Shane and family, for hosting this. This is a wonderful opportunity to talk about drip irrigation. So I guess I'll try and summarize a couple points that have been made. Shane talked about how much water that he has on 800 acres, about 400 gallons. So 2 gallons per minute per acre is a minimal amount of water. My background, I spent 20 years out in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, working as an agronomist for a seed company, and then transitioned into irrigation. We did pivots and we did drip irrigation, and typical design, we want 6 gallons per minute per acre on a pivot. We can get by with 5. With drip, we like 3 or 4 gallons per minute per acre. You know, Shane's got about 2. So there's a necessity to have really good moisture management and utilize what the soil can hold to get that moisture to the crop in its high water use time. For instance, with corn, it's around tassel time through early grain field time, high water use time. We need to make sure we have enough water at that point in time. So we use tools like soil moisture probes. We also use a satellite program called IrriWatch, which is a thermal satellite. It's a daily thermal, which gives us an idea of the temperature of the crop. So if that crop is suffering, it's going to have a higher temperature, much like you and I have when we're not feeling well. It'll have a higher temperature, so we can find out if there's a hot spot, if we're missing, if a valve didn't turn on in a particular zone. We can look at those and manage that crop. And the soil moisture probe works nicely hand in hand with the satellite program. A soil moisture probe measures one spot, where the satellite looks at the whole field. So if we know how we're doing at that one spot with the probe, we can work that together with the whole field with IrriWatch, with the satellite, and together they work really well together. So as you guys talk to growers about managing and scheduling, we really like the 1-2 punch with both of those two, because there's differences in soil type, differences in water holding capacities. So really wanted to make that point. Wyatt talked a little bit about what differentiates what we do at NutraDrip. My background, like I said, I spent about 10, 12 years with Netafim, which is a manufacturer. Now I'm with NutraDrip, the dealer. And one of the focus points is agronomy. There's no better system to effectively add water for the crop than a drip system. Very efficient. We talked about that already. 25% better efficiency than an overhead irrigation system. So we can manage water, but the other component, and I think in Nebraska, I'm sorry to say this, but I think it's underutilized. We're not using it as well as we should delivering nutrients. So one of the things that we're focused on is to help growers do a better job with their system, and that is scheduling irrigation, but also nutrient management by taking soil samples ahead of the crop, but also in season, taking plant samples. We're doing sap samples with the crop to understand what nutrients it needs at what stage of growth. And there's no better delivery system than a drip system. It's like an IV into the plant. We can put nutrients right through to that plant. So we need your guys' help to continue to promote, and there's tremendous efficiencies. We talked about better efficiency with drip on water. We can enjoy the same level of efficiency with nutrient management because we're giving that plant exactly what it needs a week or so ahead of need. So we can deliver that at that stage. So as far as the programs, we love the programs that you guys are working with in Nebraska and other states. We love to have a great conversation with you guys as we work with growers, as you work with growers, to work together to be sure that the growers are getting what they need and what they want. So want to continue that relationship as well. There's a number of things that Shane is also doing with raising feed crops for his cattle, but also he's doing a lot of cover crops and a lot of grazing, and that, in my opinion, is also underutilized. I think there's a great opportunity to add water to grazing, and there's a lot of cattle in Nebraska. There's a lot of opportunities to utilize that system throughout the year, and if there's adequate water, we can utilize that more efficiently with drip. So really excited to work with Shane and his family on not only the crops, but also working with grazing opportunities, cover crops. And another thing that Shane and his family are really focused on is soil health. And there's some great opportunities that we have. There's a lot of new metrics, new soil tests that help us to be better stewards and be better managers of soil health. And again, we can deliver carbon, we can deliver humics and fulvic acids, we can feed the microbes so the microbes can do a better job of freeing up nutrients. There's a lot of things that we can do with the delivery system of a drip system that's really exciting. We have a lot of advantages efficiency-wise, but also we can deliver a lot of different things, not just nutrients. So I guess I would entertain if there's questions. Are we covering what you guys want to do? I guess we never really asked.
You got a chance.
So in comparison with our, large intensive center pivot irrigation grounds, say north central Holt County, a lot of those center pivot guys are using 15 to 20 inches of water a year to raise a crop of corn. We've got surface water guys on the south side of the river using 30 inches of water a year to raise 220 bushel corn. You look here and we've got meters on Shane's stuff. We've got static water level monitoring here. And, the most we've seen Shane use, I think the driest year, we were creeping up on 11 inches. Normally it's 7 to 9 inches of water that Shane's using to raise a crop. So it sounds like it's labor intensive, it sounds like it might cost a lot, but without it, he's raising this third or less of what he is now. He's using a third or less inputs than what his competitors in northern Holt County are using to raise the similar crops. So what Shane's doing out here has brought a lot to our NRD board as far as practices, considerations for priorities when we look at new irrigated acres, maybe some grant opportunities down the road. I think it's highly feasible if we can go a direction. We can maybe offer some pivot to conversion or a pivot to subsurface drip conversions through some grant programs, through Shane being part of the groundwater management committee at our district, and some of the stuff he's got experience with. We now do cost share programs through a grant opportunity from Water Sustainability Fund for flow meters, telemetry, soil moisture probes, and other irrigation technologies. So that's, our NRD has learned a ton just by Shane being part of the district, part of being on the board, and now I'll let you guys ask any questions.
I got a couple other comments, and then I want to have Jeff talk a little bit. But as far as yields, just generally, I think our lowest yield was 180 bushel on some corn that got hailed pretty hard. Our best yields was 250. We're probably running around a 225 bushel corn yield on what we're doing. And a lot of those years we were all corn. And this crop rotation is way overlooked in my mind. This 40 acres up north here, we had a small grain, and then we came behind it with a cover crop. And then the south side of that was soybeans. And then the following year, we had corn on all of it. There was a 40 bushel corn yield difference on that. It's huge, I think. And from a fertility standpoint, I'm not big on trying things other than we can show you a lot of things that didn't work. Like this field is a disaster with all the bean stubble blown off. I mean, we're not planning to grow beans, if I have my way, ever again, probably. That's one point I wanted to make. Another one, kind of jumping around here, but to the NutraDrip side of things, these guys are changing things, and it's pro or con. I mean, we've changed controllers at least twice. We've changed some programs. We've changed some soil moisture probes. We've changed a whole bunch of flow meter stuff. But when we first installed the original drip, a lot of this technology, we got pressure compensating tape now that wasn't being used. It was more money, so you're trying to save money, and you find out in the end it costs you money. So there's been a lot of changes that they brought to the table, and it's a big deal because they're willing to change, and they'll let us make the decision, is it worth it or not, and having them as a team is a big deal. Jeff, I don't remember when you started helping us out for 2019. We throw mud at the wall all the time, at you probably, and he sure brought some out of the box thinking. I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on our soil testing and what we do for fertility, crop rotation, just kind of what you're seeing, and maybe one or the other of you can talk about the sap testing and whatnot that we're going to try this year. This is Jeff Klaus. He's with left field. Is that right? North 40. Complete agronomy. All right. See, he changes stuff too.
To expound on what Shane was saying with the soil sampling and testing we've been doing, like Shane said, since 2019, since I've been on board, this operation's constantly been changing and evolving, and Shane's always looking to make everything better, and soil health became a priority, and everybody's got their definition of what soil health is. Well, Shane knows what his is, so at least we have a direction on where we want to go. That's the most important thing. So here a couple of years ago, my team and I, we came out, we pulled 2.5 acre grids on every acre. We pulled Haney tests off of zone samples, and we pulled a total soil digestion sample off of those zones also, which basically, if you're not familiar with the total soil digestion, it basically treats a soil sample as a manure sample. So when we look at all this data, and we've got tens of thousands of data points off of one day of work we did out here. I mean, between all the grids, we ran complete analyses on that, so our chemical fertility, our base sets, all the Haney metrics. There's just a lot of data we had to sort through. But at least that gave us a direction on, you know, where do we need to go based on what Shane wants to do. And I mean, that's the first thing you got to figure out is, you know, what does this mean on your farm, on your operation, and where do you want to go? So based on, we take in all that information, and one of the things that's probably, you know, caught Shane's attention the most, we look at, you know, your standard chemical fertility soil test that you get from Midwest Labs or Ward Labs or whoever you use. You know, we've got 50 parts per million P2O5 out in this field, which equates to 100 pounds per acre. Okay, that's great, but then we look at that total soil digestion sample, and there's 1,200 pounds an acre of total phosphorus out in this field. So that's a huge gap. So how do we tap into, you know, we've got what's available to the plant on our chemical test, which is just a small percentage of what's actually out there. So, I mean, we're looking at all kinds of, you know, different products, compost extracts, feeding the biology, the crop rotation, just to, you know, shove more carbon into that ground, because, you know, this lighter ground out here, the more roots and carbon we can shove down into this ground. I mean, Shane said it's a 40 bushel yield difference on corn. And, you know, that was 1 year. So what do the next 10 years look like? So I'm excited about what Shane's doing out here. And then, you know, with the NutraDrip guys, like they said, it's crazy efficient. We can run whatever we want through that tape. You know, we're moving to the point to where, you know, Shane's making a lot of investment and getting things set up to where outside of lime, we might not put any dry fertilizer on anymore. If we can run everything through the tape and just get it right to them plant roots right in that row, I mean, how much more efficient can we get? And then the cost savings on that, I mean, that can easily justify a liquid over a dry program just based on the efficiencies we're gonna have. And then I'll let Tim jump in on the in-season sampling. They're kind of handling that with, you know, the sap and paste tests, but it's really cool stuff. And I mean, those are our check marks throughout the year to make sure, you know, what we did in the fall or spring for fertility, that we're actually getting it into the plant, and we're getting what we want out of the soil into them plants. So Tim, you can go ahead and talk on that.
Thanks. I get to talk twice. This is a treat. I guess a couple things that I just thought about that was brought up earlier that I want to circle back to, and then I'll talk a little bit more about some intense new stuff that we're doing. But Shane talked about his first system being on 60-inch spacing at 17 inches deep. And drip irrigation has really evolved. 10 years ago, we were doing 80 to 90% of the systems at 60-inch spacing. Currently, we're doing that same percentage, you know, 80, 85% are in 40-inch spacing. They're narrower. And we're doing it shallower. We're doing most of our systems at 12 inches deep now, or even shallower if we're in no-till. Tillage really determines that. So as we evolve away from deep tillage, we're seeing an evolution of narrower spacing and shallower spacing. There's two things that's driving that. Tillage is driving that, but nutrient delivery is also what's really driving that. We're using the system a lot more for nutrient delivery, and so we want to touch that plant earlier in its plant phase when the root system is small. So there's a lot more systems. Like I said, 85% of them are at 40-inch. We're doing even more 30-inch. We hardly ever do a 60-inch system any longer. It's just and 10 years ago that was all of them. So that's an evolution that's happening, and we're becoming better managers. The other point that I want to circle back to, and it was mentioned by several of them, is because we can manage all of these different things, it sometimes gets to be really a lot. And we've used technology and be able to use our cell phones and sensors to do a lot better job of managing. And I think that bears mentioning again. There's a lot going on. We can do something on a daily or weekly basis if we want. We don't have to, but we have sensors and we can manage it through technology, which is exciting. So what Jeff mentioned, what we're evolved to, we've done a lot of in-season soil sampling and tissue sampling up to this year. We've evolved to what we call a pace test, and what a pace test is a mixture of the irrigation water that we're using along with the soil. We've recognized over the years that the quality of the irrigation water makes a huge difference in the nutrient availability. If you got a lot of bicarbonates or a really ugly water, it's impacting what's available to the plant. So if we can quantify that and we can change that or remediate that to an extent, we're going to pick up a lot of that natural fertility that Jeff was talking about. There's a lot of natural fertility out there, but it's being tied up by something. So by doing what we call a rapid soil or a pace test, where we have soil and water together, we can see what's changing with the water, what's becoming less available, and then we can prescribe a fertilizer combination that will help to free up the nutrients that are naturally in the soil, plus add some fertility, whatever that we need. And then we're using sap sample, which is plant sample, and we're looking at the actual blood of the plant. Tissue sample takes the tissue, dries it out, crushes it, and then you take what's fully in the leaf as a nutrient. With sap sampling, you're taking more or less a blood sample. So it's much like what we do when we go to the doctor. We get a blood sample, and it's squeezing out what liquids in the xylem and the phloem and in the leaves, and we're looking at the top leaf and the bottom leaf. So the top leaf, when we're growing the factory, when we're growing the plant, we're looking at the top leaf. When that crop transitions, like corn transitions to the ear being the main focus after tassel and pollination, then we'll collect samples from the ear leaf and the bottom leaf and the soil samples. And so we can dial in what that plant really needs, what's available in the soil. We can use a fertilizer blend that frees up what's available in the soil. So that's something new for us this year. We're really excited about it. Some of the partners that we've taken on, we've worked with for 8 or 10 years, and they're evolving and we're evolving. So it's an exciting time. It's a great time to be in agriculture. I've been an agronomist for over 40 years, and every year there's something new, there's something better, there's improvement, and it's fun to be part of that evolutionary process. So appreciate the ability to talk to you guys about it. We know that there's a lot of water quality challenges in Nebraska, and we're hoping to be able to remediate that with the growers.
I know we're running a little late, but one or two quick questions.
Life expectancy.
What's that?
How long does one of those tapes last?
How long does the tape last? 25, 30 years if you take care of it?
And you have to take care of the emitters. The emitters on the dripper line is what we have to take care of.
Right.
You do a good job of that, 25, 30 years or more.
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds like there was a lot of upfront cost investment. How many years until you see a return or you break even?
There's a lot of ways to analyze that. You know, that quarter down south, I think we bought in 2005, and it was $280 an acre. And I think the system at that point was maybe $1,500. And we're able to irrigate every farmable piece of that quarter versus, you know, the corners and whatnot. And we wouldn't be raising, you know, I would say on that kind of ground, that's a 60 bushel APH corn farm if you tried to farm it, and we had 250 bushel corn on that. So there's 1,000 ways to analyze it. I don't know what drip costs right now, but it's $2,500 to $3,000 depending upon the size and shape of your farm, I would guess. But
And did you get grants when you initially?
no,
Okay.
no. Go ahead.
What about rodents?
You know, rodents are, they'll tell you it's a big issue, and it is. Not as big as I thought out here. You go over the hill and their grandpa catches gophers all the time in the alfalfa fields, and that's a mile away. We do have a few rodents, but you know, if you maintain the leaks, which you have occasionally, they have a group that comes out in the spring and does spring startup, and then they do a winterization in the fall. And initially, we weren't staying on top of stuff as well as we should, but we're getting there every year. And the rodents are a problem, but they're not overwhelming at all, I wouldn't say. And this is a spot they should be bad.
What about water hardness?
What's that?
Hardness of the water.
I don't know what the answer to that would be. Our water quality, he has told me about 6 times today, is very, very good quality. So I don't know. Water hardness, Tim, do you have a comment on that?
Part of what I talked about a minute ago is understanding what water that we have to work with. And yes, hardness, alkalinity, bicarbs, we look at all those things and put together a remediation program with the acid fertilizer potentially and some humics and fulvics to add the carbon to feed the microbes. So yes, absolutely, that's a moving target. You know, they got great water here. As you get west, we got some clients out in the panhandle in Nebraska that water gets awful ugly, but we still have a program that has to fit for a corn and soybean grower. So yes, it's all over the board, and that's one of the things that we're paying more attention to this year. So great question.
Thank you.
No, we've never had any. That was our first irrigation experience. Yeah.
You're thinking about 2/3 better water on it?
It's at least 2/3 better. I mean, with the water on it. Yeah, I don't know that. There's so many holes in our bucket yet to improve upon. It's hard to say. I think the water quality question, though, these guys are cleaning manure pits and pumping that through the tape, which is still mind-blowing to me, and I've heard it about 7 or 8 times. So as far as water quality, if you got a question on it, I'm sure they've heard about it or probably already have it figured out.
So this is a filtration system here?
Yeah.
Why do you need that?
There's a lot of really fine sand here in our wells. In fact, one of the original filter systems had a vortex. It was a pre-cleaner, and then it was a little bit different type of system. When we started working with NutraDrip, they brought up sand media filters, and it filters out that fine sand basically. As near as I can tell for our system, that's all we need to do. And then we flush in the fall. They'll blow it out with air. There's flush valves on the end, and it cleans it out from a debris standpoint.
Without it, are you plugging nozzles or little holes underneath?
I would assume we would, but we've never run it without that. Okay.
If you don't mind, I'd expand on that just a little bit more. One of the benefits of drip irrigation is it actually drips out of the emitter. So it's a really slow introduction of water into the soil. And that helps the soil to maintain a good balance of water and air. With flood irrigation, you push out all the air. With flood irrigation, with pivots, you're putting on a big amount at one time. With drip irrigation, you're introducing it really slowly. So the emitters are really small, so we need to protect the integrity of that emitter. I think there was a question earlier about the life of the system. If we protect the integrity of that emitter, then we'll get 30 years out of it. And filtration is the piece to protect the integrity of it. So we can introduce that water really slowly and create the correct environment for the roots. So great question.
Any other questions?
Can you talk briefly more about your decision to go to 12 inches on your depth of tape? Is that more on the rooting depth of the corn, or what was the decision behind that?
I don't know that we've got anything quite that shallow. I think we're probably closer to 14. I think the 12 would be fine, even with some light tillage. We have a neighbor that put some 30-inch in spacing, and I would strongly consider that with our soil type. I think the nutrient add-on to all of this is, I think that all makes sense to maybe a little bit narrower tape. I'm sure it's an added, I know it's an added cost, but in the long run, you know, we're here for the long run, I guess. And that's, just thank these guys for showing up today. And they're gonna show these two how to run this at some point. I don't know if she wants to talk about it or not, but we've been turning the pressure dial up pretty hard the last week. Laney's a second year going into Mitchell into agronomy and ag business, and we're just pushing her off the high board into their lap for now. Any other questions? You're all welcome to walk through and look around or whatever, or reach out. Wade's got my number if you ever have any other questions, or we can get, yeah, we're an open book as far as this is concerned.
Thank you.
Yep.